Strikingly amazing, how a little girl's simple request transformed a grumpy CEO's life forever. Robert Thompson was a 45-year-old titan of Chicago's advertising world, his life dictated by numbers in quarterly reports rather than emotions. The office buzzed with activity, yet within the walls of his glass fortress, Robert's heart seemed like a cold, sterile environment. Focus on profit, he would bark to his team, his perfectly tailored suit feeling suffocating. It was a mantra, one that had propelled him to success but left him emotionally bankrupt. He sat behind a polished mahogany desk, papers strewn around like failed campaigns, but the real failure lay at home, his estranged 6-year-old daughter, Lily. As he rifled through a stack of reports, Robert briefly noticed a faint sound of childless laughter, layered sharp against the discussions of budgets and brand positioning. Startled, he frowned, pushing the intrusive thought aside. Yet, through the glass walls, he heard Lily, her tiny voice cut through his corporate haze, wishing he could join her at school. An innate pull towards her innocence interrupted his thoughts of that evening's crucial board meeting. It gnawed at him, but ambition silenced it. "It's just a childish whim," he muttered, shaking his head. Moments later, his phone buzzed, a colleague urgently requesting a favor. Robert's heart sank at the sudden shift. "I can't," he wanted to argue, but the weight of his company's expectations shackled him. He didn't have a choice. Attendance would solidify his colleague's respect and ensure his plans for the next quarter went smoothly. He promised he'd be there, but as the words left his mouth, uncertainty crawled up his spine. Would he make it? Would she even care? Anxiety twisted within him, blurring the line between personal obligation and professional steadfastness. As the hours ticked down, Robert tried to focus, but visions of a vibrant kindergarten classroom filled his mind, pulling him into a whirlwind of doubt. He loathed the idea of stepping into that world, one filled with bright colors and giggles, a stark contrast to the steel-gray reality of his work life. Yet, the image of Lily's hopeful face flickered like a beacon in his thoughts, challenging the icy grip of profit over love. What could I possibly provide her? He questioned, feeling his resolve weaken. He hesitated, further entangled in his internal wrestling match. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he finally stepped into the classroom, a wave of emotions crashed over him. The noise of children's laughter filled the air, contrasting painfully with the silence of his lonely apartment. Each innocent aspiration floated past him. I want to be a firefighter. I'll be a princess. They declared their dreams without hesitation, and something within Robert shattered. While he stood watching, he felt old ambitions suffocate him. For a moment, even just a heartbeat, he remembered his own youthful longing for connection. Stronger still was the realization that he'd sacrificed years chasing a false sense of accomplishment. Locked in his struggle, Robert decided it was too late to turn back, just as his eyes found Lily. On that tiny stage, with a smile that lit up the room, she glowed like a star, introducing him as if he were a superhero. But he wasn't that man. He'd drowned in spreadsheets and boardroom battles. The joy in her presence stopped him cold. Fear washed over him. Was he too lost to chase a life where love was more central than profit? Every cheer from the audience raked against his heart, a relentless reminder of the choices that haunted him. He felt a demand rising within. Could he really reach for something so precious before it slipped away, like sand through his fingers? A surge of warmth enveloped Robert as he stood there, anchored by the admiration in Lily's eyes. Each cheer she garnered felt like a sliver of ice melting within the confines of his heart. But as the applause faded, a heavy reality loomed. The little girl on stage radiated hope, while he knew he had withered those possibilities with his relentless focus on success. Surrounded by laughter and joy, he could no longer ignore the gnawing regret that bloomed like an invasive weed in his otherwise carefully manicured corporate garden. That moment triggered something deep within him. It forced a reckoning. How long had he defined himself through profits rather than connections? How long had he pushed away the very thing that could bring color to his monochrome existence? Back at his desk, he was the undisputed king of the boardroom, commanding respect through calculated decisions and fierce negotiations. But here, standing in a classroom filled with children, he felt utterly powerless. The sound of Lily's laughter seeped into his consciousness again, and an idea struck him. Perhaps he could change. Perhaps, in this moment of vulnerability, he could initiate a transformation not only for himself but for the relationship he longed to repair with his daughter. He stole glances at Lily over the heads of her classmates, and determination coursed through him. He would find a balance, prove to his daughter that she mattered more than an impressive quarterly report. Back at his office, Robert sat staring blankly at quarterly figures that had once consumed him. The urge to accelerate his work seemed futile now. The spreadsheets, the profit margins, they all faded away, replaced by a conviction that he had to become who Lily needed. He picked up the phone and called his assistant. "Cancel my meetings for the rest of the week," he said, the conviction in his voice surprising even him. "I'm going to spend time with my daughter." As he hung up, reality hit him like a sudden thunderclap. Where would he take her? What would they do together? Scenarios whirled through his head, each more intimidating than the last. The thought of last-minute party planning paralyzed him. Could he really create an experience worthy of the joyous memories stamped in Lily's mind? His trepidation was palpable, but he forced himself to face it. Standing tall in the office, he noted how different the space felt now. The walls felt even more restrictive, filled with echoes of ambition that now sounded hollow. He had tried to build a fortress of success, only to realize it had become his prison. "Focus on profit," he murmured, recalling his own words with scorn. What had they delivered him, except a life full of regrets and missed opportunities? Robert realized that a decision loomed larger than any business contract. Could he be present in Lily's life? He didn't want to be that grumpy father anymore. Robert took a deep breath, allowing hope to settle into the pit of his stomach. Swallowing panic, he began to brainstorm. Ice cream? Amusement park? A simple picnic in the park? Each thought ignited something within, the tiniest flickers of excitement illuminating the gloom that had clouded his heart for far too long. Maybe I can take her to the zoo, he thought, letting the vision deepen. Animals, adventure, and laughter, an entire day dedicated to reconnecting, unclouded by corporate obligations. This was the step he needed to become the father he always wished he could be. As he pulled out his phone to check schedule availability, another realization washed over him. He had a lot to learn, not just about how to connect with his daughter, but perhaps even more about himself. The impressions of the day played on a loop inside him as he considered his next steps. Would Lily accept the changes he intended to make? Could he really break away from his identity as the unemotional CEO and embrace his new role? It was then, in a moment of clarity, Robert understood this was just the beginning. He wouldn't just change for Lily, he needed this transformation for himself, too. And as he formulated plans, one pressing question thundered through him: how far was he willing to go to rewrite their story together? Gazing out the window of his office, Robert felt an unfamiliar flutter in his chest. The world outside buzzed with life, a shocking contrast to the dismal confines he'd created for himself within the glass walls of his high-rise. He was enmeshed in thoughts of Lily, envisioning her joy at an unexpected adventure. The idea brewed in his mind, but it also triggered a cascade of unsettling self-doubt. Was he enough for her? Would one day of special attention be sufficient to bridge the chasm that years of neglect had forged? The harsh reality whispered that a single outing might not undo the emotional distance he had perpetuated. The thought gnawed at him. Yes, he could take her to the zoo, but what would he talk about as they walked among the animals? For too long, he had drowned in an ocean of business jargon and boardroom tactics. The deeper he probed, the more he realized he was approaching this new venture armed only with professional skills and a lifetime's worth of emotional distance. His phone buzzed violently, snapping him back to the moment. A text from his assistant flickered on the screen. "Are you sure, Robert? This could impact your projections." The reminder of his unshakable responsibilities tightened the knot in his stomach as he realized just how deeply his life had been entangled in work. But perhaps, he mused, the true risk now lay in choosing to dive into the unknown of being a father. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping across the floor, startling himself. The tightness he felt evolved into determination. He needed to confront this head-on, not just for Lily, but for the man he wished to become, a man who embraces challenges rather than runs from them. With renewed clarity, Robert made a mental checklist. The zoo would be the starting point, a fresh beginning. He would take the time to learn what Lily loved, her interests, her laughter, her favorite animal from the storybooks they used to read together. It required a commitment to peel back the layers he had built around himself, to be genuine, vulnerable. As the clock ticked, he wrestled with thoughts about deeper connections. It wasn't enough to share an outing, he needed conversations that mattered. The realization struck him hard: beyond the surface of being fun dad, he must explore the nuances of their relationship. He envisioned himself asking her about dreams and fears, sharing a little about his own journey through the pressures of adulthood. He was reluctant, fear gnawing at him about exposing any uncertainty he felt. But if he was truly committed to change, he needed to strip away the polished facade. The idea excited and terrified him. What if Lily saw him as weak? Or worse, what if she preferred the distance they had maintained? Swallowed by uncertainty, Robert battled with the instinct to revert to the high-achieving professional he had always been. Yet, the thought of repeating past mistakes felt like trailing an anchor through a tempest. He took a moment, steadying himself. He drafted an outline in his mind, a loose structure of what he hoped to chat about. Animals. School. Friendships. Emotions. The unknown felt daunting, but Robert realized this challenge would sculpt him into a more rounded father. With each thoughtful pause, he could almost feel the foundations of his personality shifting. Perhaps it was not about forcing a drastic transformation, but rather about being open to learning, developing, and allowing space for their evolving connection. In that pivotal moment, something shifted inside Robert. He thought about his old ways of defining success. Perhaps, true success now lay in the moments he would create with Lily, the memories they would forge together, and the father he needed to become. As he finalized plans for their adventure, the evening sky casting a warm glow over the city, Robert sensed excitement curling around the edges of his anticipation. The determination to let go of old expectations and embrace newfound vulnerability held an empowering promise. But as he unlocked his phone to text Lily about the surprise waiting for her, another wave of doubt crashed over him. This was just the first step, and he pondered how deep the waters of their relationship truly ran. Would she welcome him into her world? Gripped by uncertainty, he contemplated the enormity of the journey ahead. This wasn't just a trip to the zoo. This was about forging a bond, breaking barriers, and perhaps learning the hardest lesson of all: patience. What if the adventure unveiled hidden depths about himself he hadn't yet discovered? Only time would reveal the extent to which his transformation could unfold. With that thought lingering, he prepared for the leap, unknowing of the monumental shifts awaiting him. Would the path ahead lead to redemption, or would old patterns threaten to rise once more? Waking up the next day, Robert felt the weight of the sunrise filtering through his bedroom window. A sense of nervous anticipation clung to him, more vivid than the warm shafts of light that danced across his face. Today wasn't just another day, it represented a tentative step towards redemption, an emergence from years of stubborn detachment. As he brewed his morning coffee, the fragrance filled the air, acting as an almost soothing balm against the rawness brewing in his chest. He retrieved his phone, checking Lily's favorite animal, the elephant, facts online. Somehow, he felt distanced from the childlike curiosity that had once characterized his own youth. It surprised him how quickly he slid into attempting to craft an ideal experience instead of simply being himself. No longer could he afford to plan out every conversation. The lurking fear of failing as a father clawed at him, threatening to unravel any confidence he had managed to build. Moments from the past darted through his mind, memories of being the high-achieving executive in a suit, always prepared, always polished, a far cry from the emotional openness he needed to exude today. His reflection in the mirror showed a man who had spent too long waiting for encounters to come to him. He felt like an imposter in his own skin, dressed for a role he was clueless how to play. But the notion that change could spring from genuine dialogue flickered within him, and he resolved it was time to stop overthinking and simply listen, be vulnerable. Arriving at the zoo, nerves manifested themselves as a swarm of butterflies in his stomach. He grasped Lily's little hand, her fingers so small compared to the enormity of the world around them. Her excitement crackled in the air, illuminating paths of discovery he had long since closed off. Among the hissing reptiles and playful monkeys, Robert let her lead the way. At times, he felt like he was just along for the ride, yet still drawn deeper into her world. With each exhibit they visited, the simple joy in her laughter cracked the walls of his well-protected emotions. He asked about her favorite parts of the zoo, urging her to narrate her thoughts, feeling tentative connections form as they talked. "What's so special about elephants, Lily?" he probed, fully expecting a rehearsed answer. "They're big, Daddy. But they're gentle. And they have their families," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with a sincerity that reminded him of the beauty in uncomplicated truths. As she spoke, the little girl in front of him seemed to recognize the timid man beside her, seeing a father not just trying to catch up but seeking to understand and embrace this new emotional territory. But a pitfall lingered in the back of his mind. Was this openness enough? He had spent years lost in a corporate labyrinth that had turned human connections into mere transactions. Hungrily absorbing her joy, he felt exposed yet optimistic. Still, insecurities crept back in uninvited. Could he sustain this newfound vulnerability beyond today? Moments of light rippled through their interactions, yet darkness loomed as he realized emotional mastery wouldn't come overnight. As they strolled past a small case displaying different animal habitats, Robert deliberated whether to share any of his insecurities with her. He had always feared burdening Lily with his complexities, but every laugh they exchanged seemed to whisper, "You can trust me." What was preventing him from opening up? Would admitting his struggles jeopardize the bond he was slowly forming? This inner conflict waged war within him as they approached the petting zoo section. The prospect of engaging with Lily, aware that he was still learning to unlock the tenderness of fatherhood, felt both exhilarating and daunting. Robert knelt beside her as she watched a baby goat leap around, laughter spilling forth. "Do you think it's brave to try new things, even if they're a little scary?" he asked, heart racing at his own vulnerability. "Of course, Daddy. Just like when you try to climb the tree in the park." She giggled, her innocent confidence thundering through his most profound doubts. Feeling her laughter echo in his mind, Robert wondered if they were on the verge of discovering something profound together. This leap into the unknown might teach him more than lessons on animal habitats. Would today mark the beginning of shedding years of armor? Or would fear constrict him once more, sending him spiraling back into the shadows? As the day unfolded, moments of clarity emerged, yet questions loomed in the distance. Was the path towards true connection as simple as a child's innocent insight? He hoped to find answers in the moments that lay ahead, wishing to forge his identity not just as a father, but as a person unafraid to be seen. In this fragile interplay of trust and hesitation, Robert felt the tremors of something shifting, anxious about what the next revelation might reveal. How would he navigate the still hidden dimensions of his relationship with Lily? Would the open dialogue continue to inspire them both, or would old habits hijack the journey before it had even truly begun? As the day progressed, Robert found himself enchanted by the little moments that invaded his usual analytical lens. Walking through the exhibits, he noticed how every playful interaction with Lily chipped away at the hard exterior he decultivated over the years. She giggled, pointing at a sloth lounging effortlessly on a branch, blissfully unaware of the chaos that ensued in the background of adult life. It was a reality he had long since dismissed. The simplicity of joy was foreign yet intoxicating. With each new animal they encountered, the tension within him lightened. The giraffes reached their necks down, peering curiously at them, and Robert marveled at how effortlessly Lily engaged with these majestic creatures. She attempted to imitate their long necks, tugging at his sleeve, eyes wide with wonder, as though demonstrating how deeply she had come to understand them, and, unknowingly, how her confidence could bridge their gaps. In that moment, Robert stepped back and allowed himself to absorb the scene. He watched her imagine the stories behind each animal. Where did they come from? What did they feel? His analytical mind sparked with questions he hadn't considered. The weight of his past constrictions suddenly felt trivial compared to the world of imagination right in front of him, but as they moved toward the penguin exhibit, a creeping realization washed over him. Could he maintain this newfound interplay of trust with Lily? The fear of stumbling back into the role of the distant father pulsed within him. In a life marked by executive decisions and power plays, he'd been conditioned to view existence through a lens of outcomes, of winning and losing. How could he navigate the unwritten pathways of a childless heart? Suddenly, Lily tugged at his hand, urging him to kneel beside her as she watched the penguins scramble across the rocks. "Daddy, they just slip and slide. Like when I fell down the slide last week." she exclaimed, her laughter ringing clear and bright, echoing his past fears. "That's just part of trying, sweetheart," he said, hesitating at the opportunity to reflect deeper, to explore the implication of being unsteady, revealing his vulnerability. "But why don't you ever try?" She pouted, her brows knitting together in genuine bewilderment. The question pierced through him, slicing the remnants of his carefully curated defenses. It held a mirror to his self-inflicted limitations, the shadows of professional pressures that chained him. Was she sensing the turmoil within him? This innocent inquiry rippled through his mind, exposing layers of his identity he had worked so hard to conceal. A torrential mix of pride and vulnerability swelled in his chest as he grappled with the unfurling truth. What if he indeed allowed himself to risk falling like those penguins stripped of his polished armor? "Maybe I'm not as brave as I thought I was," he said softly, his voice almost lost in the noise of the zoo. "I'm still learning to try new things too." Silence hung between them like a fragile web, as he weighed the impact of his admission. Would this honesty intertwine them or push them further apart? And that's okay. Everyone can learn. Lily giggled, resting her head against his shoulder, blissfully unburdened by the complexities he grappled with. Her simplicity cut through the fog of his self-doubt, illuminating a new path. Every smile and giggle from her brushed aside his fears, revealing the intimacy of trust he desperately needed to cultivate. As they finished watching the penguins, Robert felt charged with a determination he hadn't anticipated. The day had unwound like a delicate piece of art, exposing emotional fibers that intertwined their hearts. He resisted the urge to manipulate the course with strategic thinking, choosing instead to remain pliable and attentive. Just then, a mischievous gust blew through the exhibit, sending a flutter of leaves skittering along the ground. It felt symbolic, he was not the only one changing direction today. Taking a deep breath, he resolved to embrace the uncomfortable, the journey into fatherhood, like watching a penguin find its footing, could also be a learning curve, and yet, somewhere in the recesses of his mind, an unsettling awareness lingered. If he continued to peel back these layers, would he face the dark remnants of his past? Could he confront the man he had become, the one who famously avoided risks, used to shutting out the very emotions he now sought? The next step loomed larger than life, ready to pull him deeper into the unknown. Would he be brave enough to face the depths of his pain, and still nurture the budding relationship with Lily? Or would hesitance drag him back into the familiar cycle of detachment? The tension coursed through him, signaling looming challenges ahead, one he could not afford to ignore. Time drifted as Robert and Lily navigated their way through the rest of the zoo. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden tones across the exhibits. Tenacity tugged at him, urging him to explore, yet cautious about the potential heartaches that lurked in his own acknowledgement of vulnerability. He knew he had to push through, if not for his own sanity, then for the tiny, earnest soul at his side. The sound of laughter echoed in the distance, pulling him toward a vibrant children's area with a splash pad. Lily's eyes lit up, sparkling with excitement. She tugged at his hand, prompting him to join her in the fray of play. "Come on, Daddy. Let us get wet." Her innocent exuberance ignited a small flicker of energy in him. The glimmer of joy huddled among his apprehensions felt like a fresh beacon of clarity. He hesitated, the practical side of him clamoring for control, citing the absurdity of reconnecting with the free-spirited joy of childhood. Yet, as he observed her anticipation, that intensity faded into a whisper. What if there was merit in embracing spontaneity? Being wet and wild could be a lesson shrouded in laughter. "Okay," he said, a smile creeping into his normally stoic expression, "I'll try." The sheer thrill in her giggles reverberated like an anthem as they ran into the splashing water. Each drop landed as a dose of reassurance, propelling him out of his shell. He felt a childlike delight, chasing her, playfully nudging her into the spray, exhilaration washing over him. In that rapture, Robert became entranced, finally tasting the liberation from the shackles of corporate expectations. He realized the risk wasn't merely a commitment to open up emotionally, it was a choice to engage with life beyond calculated outcomes, to savor the experience of being present and fully engaged. The chaos, the unpredictability, all of it. Yet, the shadows of uncertainty began to rear their heads as they climbed up the jungle gym. As he watched Lily race ahead, attempting to navigate the precarious bars, his heart raced not from anxiety about her safety, but from paternal regret. The conflicts of his duty loomed heavier in his mind. Was he too late to become the father she needed? Would these new moments of connection evaporate like mist when faced with the relentless routine of his life? Finding the courage to climb beside her, he struggled against the creaking structure. As he perched cautiously, he stifled an urge to treat it like a boardroom negotiation. The way she cheered him on forced his mind to recalibrate. "You can do it, Daddy!" she shouted, and suddenly the competition shifted within himself. This climb was no longer about proving himself but about matching the brave little girl who'd taken heart in every inch of the experience, that is when a slip came, unexpected and jarring. He lost his footing, one hand gripping the bar while the other flailed. As he tumbled backward off the climbing apparatus, the laughter that had once fueled the moment fizzled into a gasp of shock. Robert landed on the soft ground, but his momentary embarrassment felt like the stark face of failure. The gravity of his inadequacies hit hard, thoughts thrumming. As he gathered himself, the thrill was overshadowed by the fear of disappointing Lily. Yet, as he turned to her, he saw her radiant smile. "That was funny," she declared, laughter bubbling up again. The weight of his internal struggle pushed against him fiercely, but she hadn't recoiled. Instead, she held out her hand as if to say that even the adult chaos of falling could be part of the same joyful adventure. A realization struck. Perhaps it was okay to stumble. The effort he devoted to shielding himself from perceived failure had left his heart and their connection locked behind sealed walls. Taking her tiny hand, he felt renewed. Every fall was a new opportunity for learning, an opportunity he couldn't ignore. But the pulsating tension of his past wouldn't just wane meekly. Decisions awaited him, challenges unvoiced. Could he etch these moments into the fabric of their bond? A new chapter loomed, one that would require him to confront the parts of himself long relegated to the shadows. The struggle against his regrets, his fears, and the persistent doubts promised to echo within him as they exited the zoo, but would it bring him closer to Lily or further away? As he held her tiny hand, he wondered, what kind of father could he truly become? As they exited the zoo, the warm twilight wrapped around them like a soft blanket, but Robert's thoughts remained turbulent. The laughter of children faded into distant echoes, replaced by the familiar weight of responsibilities and expectations. Each step to the car became a reluctance, a retreat from the unvarnished joy he had felt moments before. He was acutely aware of the tension coiling within him, each pulse a reminder of the wall that had encapsulated his emotions for far too long. He couldn't shake the feeling that the day had been a glimpse into a different life, one where he wasn't constantly tethered to the grind of deadlines and boardroom negotiations. The simple act of falling, being vulnerable, and the joyful acceptance from Lily had cracked the shell he'd encased himself in. Yet, would that newfound clarity translate into lasting change, or would it fade into the background of his responsible life once they returned home? When they arrived back at the house, Robert noticed the familiar quiet that crept in like fog. The vivid memories of the zoo clashed against the mundane reality that awaited him, reports to read, emails to answer, and the suffocating pressure of performance metrics. He sat on the edge of the couch while Lily buzzed around. Her energy infectious but unignorable was the whirlpool of dread that began pulling him under. "Daddy, can we play?" Her voice, bright and cheerful, cut through his swirling thoughts. Robert blinked back the remnants of uncertainty. "What do you want to play, sweetheart? Let us be zoo animals. You can be a lion and I'll be a monkey." As he watched her mimic the energetic jumps and shrieks of a monkey, her face painted with joy, something in him shifted. Her uninhibited laughter reached him, a siren call to break free from the armor of professionalism he wore so lightly yet so heavily. He found himself picturing the power dynamics at work, the endless expectations he internalized, transfixed then on this little girl who would find every bit of life in the most whimsical of games. "Okay, but I'm a really scary lion." He stood up, shaking off the remnants of tension and letting a low growl escape his lips. The moment seemed to breathe life back into him, igniting a spark of spontaneity. He prowled around the living room as she darted between the furniture, shrieking with gleeful abandon. The play was simple yet profound. With every roar, with every leap, he felt the barriers compress and begin to crumble. But flashes of fear still peppered his mind. What if this connection was fleeting? As they played, he found himself anticipating disappointment in his day-to-day life, worrying he couldn't replicate this joy when it would matter most. "You need to be the lion now, Daddy," murmured Lily after a particularly wild round of jumping. Lions are brave. Her small words struck chord after chord within him. It was true, in this game, he could embrace bravery not just by embodying the powerful lion but by facing the very real fears of himself. Perhaps, the lion prowled not just within but also in the choices he'd have to face in his life ahead, a decision to engage and remain connected or to slip back into the shadows of his professional confines. As the game continued, Robert realized that authenticity was birthed from the combination of strength and vulnerability. It wasn't enough to simply enjoy this moment, the lesson charged within him to weave these experiences into the very ring of fatherhood. His heart raced at the thought. The path forward was not just a matter of playing with Lily, it would require real energy to confront the daily drudgery he had once prioritized over genuine connections. Key decisions loomed. Should he take the risk in crafting a new workplace culture? Ignite a space for emotional honesty? The time had come to redefine not just what kind of father he wanted to be, but who he could become as a leader, someone capable of drawing strength from vulnerability. The crack in his walls had widened, a fracture through which light gleamed in hopeful orange. As they collapsed in laughter on the floor, Robert began to realize his journey would be anything but linear. Yet the only way to move forward was through the mirror of self-acceptance, embracing his missteps along with the triumphs. Tomorrow, he thought, I'll take the first step. The weight of his ambitions tangled with the spark of newfound ambition. He caught Lily's laughter, a siren call echoing through the chambers of his heart. What awaited him at that office tomorrow, a leader or a lion still wrestling with doubt? The answers loomed just at the edge of horizon as he watched Lily, innocent and unaware of the vast chasm of change surrounding them. Would he dare to leap, or would fear hold him back, locking him into a mask he desperately wanted to shed? The morning sun slashed through the curtains as Robert sat at the edge of his bed, the memory of yesterday's joyful play still echoing in his mind. The playful growls of a lion and Lily's delighted squeals reverberated through him as if they were calling him back to that moment of authenticity. But now, facing another day at the office, the weight of expectation settled heavily on his shoulders again, threatening to drown out the light that had flickered to life within him. Today was a soft tension between him and everything he had built, the office walls designed to contain rather than inspire, the automated greetings from colleagues who rarely strayed beyond small talk, and the rigid spreadsheets that dictated success. Taking a deep breath, Robert steadied himself for what lay ahead. The ride to work felt longer than usual. Every stoplight was a lullaby of uncertainty, an uninvited drip of doubt crashing against the newfound resolve he carried. He clenched the steering wheel, striving to weave his intention into a manageable plan. Today marked the day he leveraged his relationship with Lily to spark something deeper in his own professional life. As he stepped into the office, Robert was met with the familiar scent of coffee mixed with the electronic hum of laptops. He maneuvered through the sea of employees, faces devoid of enthusiasm but masked with professionalism, and settled at his desk. The tasks that awaited him felt heavy, a litany of emails demanding his immediate attention. But he summoned the memory of laughter, letting it act as armor against the encroaching drudgery. His mind oscillated between the demands of his job and the deeper longing ignited in him. As his fingers danced over the keyboard, he could almost hear Lily's voice urging him to be brave, to leap. He paused. It was time. With a steadying breath, Robert clicked open the company chat to invite his team to a quick meeting. As the notifications pinged in acknowledgement, a lump formed in his throat. "Let us discuss today's brainstorming session," he typed, "but I want each of you to come prepared to share not just ideas, but honestly what motivates you about your work." The idea felt radical, to ask his team to be vulnerable, to bring not just their brains but also their hearts to the meeting. Yet the implication of such an invitation loomed larger than he anticipated. What if they resented him for pushing boundaries that had been established for years? What if they dismissed him as soft, as someone who had lost the edge in the corporate game? He wrestled with that thought even as the replies began to roll in, some enthusiastic, while others offered cautious acceptance. Testing the limits of their comfort zones in this way was a gamble, and doubts masked themselves like shadows in the corners of his mind. For a brief moment, he faltered, imagining the looming board meeting on Friday and the critical eyes of his superiors judging him for what could easily be deemed an unsuccessful initiative. But suddenly, a fleeting memory of Lily swinging her arms wide, asking him to be a powerful lion, propelled him back to that moment of clarity. What would it mean to be a leader if I didn't embrace vulnerability? He whispered to himself, Feeling the tension dissipate with each breath, the meeting was scheduled for the afternoon, which provided no time for hesitation. Each second swept him closer to a pivotal moment, one that could either shatter barriers or solidify them. As he gathered his thoughts for the session, an internal compass shifted. He realized that it wasn't just about fostering a connection at work, it was about laying a foundation for real growth, not just for himself but for the organization. Authenticity, he discovered, had the power to transform conflict into resolution, competition into collaboration. As the clock ticked towards the meeting, worry fluttered in his stomach like a trapped bird. Would his peers embrace this shift? Would they laugh it off or take it seriously? The seconds ticked away like the urgency of his own self-acceptance, and all he could do was prepare to leap. Today would reveal the trajectory of his journey, not just as a father or a leader, but as a human willing to redefine strength through vulnerability. But as he gathered his courage, Robert sensed a storm of resistance brewing at the fringes of his prepared mind. How would he navigate the inevitable pushback from those unwilling to step away from traditional paradigms? The answer was just out of reach as their shared ideas collided with his ambitions. Would being vulnerable in a room full of skeptics shatter his vision, or would it empower him to forge a new path? Hope and fear quarreled within. The only certainty left was that the meeting was about to begin. The meeting room felt constricted, the air thick with the palpable hesitation of his team. Robert took his seat at the head of the table, clenched hands resting on the polished surface as he eyed the familiar faces. Each wore an expression that roamed the spectrum between confusion and skepticism. The clock ticked audibly, amplifying the mounting tension as he glanced at the agenda he crafted with such hope. "Thanks for coming, everyone," he began, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask. "Today, I'd like us all to share what drives us professionally." A muted wave of surprise washed over the group, punctured by a few raised eyebrows. Robert pressed on, bolstered by a surge of determination. "What motivates you beyond the daily grind? I think it's important we tap into that, for ourselves and the team." As he spoke, his voice wrestled with uncertainty, but he pushed through, envisioning the potential behind his words, his daughter's voice echoing with pride. The first to speak was Rachel, a colleague known for her brilliant analytical skills but rarely for openness. She hesitated, fidgeting with the pen in her hand, eyes darting around as though looking for an escape. I guess helping clients succeed keeps me going?" Her tone reflected reluctance rather than conviction. "Great start, Rachel, but what does that mean to you?" Robert leaned forward, craving authentic engagement. He felt the weight of each question, knowing they could either pry open conversational doors or close them permanently. "I like to solve problems," she admitted, but her gaze dropped, as if ashamed by the simplicity of her response. An awkward silence settled like mist, and doubt began to creep back in. Cautiously, Daniel offered his insight, still bristling from Robert's earlier suggestion. "I do it for the paycheck, honestly. I suppose that's what pays the bills. What more is there?" An undercurrent of sarcasm pricked at Robert's resolve. A cocktail of frustration and empathy flooded him. Was it absurd to expect more? Had he misjudged their readiness for a more vulnerable discourse? He sensed the tension ripple through the group as their disappointment became palpable and the gravity of his initiative began to sink. "Everyone," he interjected, his voice steadier now, "I understand this may feel uncomfortable. But think about it, if we don't explore what drives us, how can we genuinely collaborate? How can we innovate?" He locked eyes with Rachel, urging her to share more. The atmosphere began to shift slightly, murmurs traveled around the table. A few faces softened, curiosity replacing skepticism, but uncertainty still hung like thick fog. Suddenly, Lily's innocent observations materialized in his mind: "If you want to be a lion, you have to roar." Her words echoed within him, lifting his spirit as Robert decided to share something personal as a catalyst for connection. "I remember a moment with my daughter that taught me the importance of being honest about what I truly crave in life. It wasn't just about being successful, it was about being fulfilled. I invite you to consider your roar. What does fulfillment look like for you?" A long silence followed, but it ignited the team's hesitant sparks beneath their calm exteriors. Slowly, Rachel spoke up again. "I think I'd like to feel appreciated more, not just for the tasks I complete but for the person I am." As voices started to rise, some team members echoed Rachel, others countered with their own vulnerabilities, a sense of camaraderie blossoming against the backdrop of initial resistance. Something shifted in the room, energy exchanging as if they had all collectively decided to lean into the discomfort. Just as Robert felt a glimmer of hope, a sharp knock interrupted the flow of emotions. The door swung open, and in walked Samantha, their demanding director. Her sharp gaze swept the room, zeroing in on Robert. "What is going on here? This isn't a therapy session." The atmosphere instantly shifted back to an all too familiar unease. Robert's heart raced, adrenaline coursing through him as he faced this unexpected confrontation. Would he fight for this vision he had just begun to forge, or would he step back into the shadows of compliance? The tension snapped as external expectations bore down on him, wanting to bury the emerging vulnerability of his team. The storm had arrived, and suddenly, it was no longer just about their meeting's authenticity, it was about his very career and the reclamation of his newfound purpose. As Samantha's questioning gaze bore into him, Robert found himself teetering on the edge of a decision, to continue this brave conversation or retreat into a familiar, safer existence. The moment was charged, the future of his journey hung in the balance, and the time had come to decide. In that instant, Robert felt a surge of resolve lift within him, stronger than the tremors of doubt that had plagued him throughout the day. He sensed the magnitude of the moment, not just for himself but for his team, for Lily, and for the gradual transformation he had begun. "Samantha," he said, locking eyes with her, "what we're doing here is important. It's about fostering a culture of collaboration and emotional openness, a place where we can truly thrive. This is not a therapy session, it's a revolution." The firmness in his voice startled even him. Samantha arched a brow, the surprise palpable in the room. "A revolution? You think talking about feelings is going to fix our productivity problems?" Her tone dripped with skepticism, but a spark of curiosity flickered in the group. "Yes," Robert declared boldly, his conviction carving a path through the tension. "If we don't understand what drives us, we'll always be limited by the numbers on a spreadsheet. Team morale hinges on authenticity and connection. To truly succeed, we need to engage with each other beyond transactional interactions." He felt an unexpected confidence as he continued to express himself. He shared how the experience with Lily had unlocked a deeper understanding of success for him, one that melded professional excellence with personal fulfillment. On the surface, reaching targets means success, but that success is hollow without passion. "As a leader, I choose to advocate for a workspace where everyone feels valued for who they are." Slowly, a palpable shift rippled around the table. Robert's words melted the icy grip of skepticism, granting vulnerability a seat at the table. Rachel regained her momentum, taking cues from his courage. "I realize I don't just want to be seen as a cog in the machine. I want to contribute ideas that matter," she proclaimed, her earlier hesitance dissipating like mist. Encouraged by her newfound courage, Daniel joined in, springing from his usual apathy. "I've felt the burden of simply producing results without understanding their impact. There is a lack of connection in our workspaces that affects us all," he said. The atmosphere thickened with palpable recognition, collective sharing ignited trust in the room as barriers began to crumble. Seeing this wave of newfound openness, beautiful truth dawned on Robert. Here was transformative power, something he had been yearning for within himself for so long. Together, they were reclaiming their narrative, engaging in the raw essence of collaborative innovation. With Lily's echoing laughter still ringing in his ears, he urged them to keep this momentum flowing. "Let us build something new. A place where every voice matters, every story counts. I want to hear your aspirations, the dreams that fuel you to show up each day," he said firmly, sweeping his gaze across every face. As the meeting progressed, emotions were laid bare like stones being turned over, each one revealing hidden treasures of resilience, joy, and aspiration. By the time they concluded, a palpable energy filled the space. Connectivity that had been absent for far too long had finally made its entrance. In those moments, Robert felt changes rippling through him, like currents of clarity washing over the turmoil he had held onto for years. The transformation from a guarded CEO to an authentic leader was cementing itself in concrete action. He realized that what had begun as an attempt to nurture a connection with Lily had birthed a radical shift in his professional sphere as well. With reflection enveloping him as they wrapped up the meeting, hope burgeoned within him. He was redefining himself not only in the walls of his office but also in the fabric of fatherhood. That evening, as he returned home to Lily, he radiated a newfound solidity. His daughter bounded up to him, her eyes sparkling with the delight only a child could possess. "Daddy, can we play lions again?" Robert knelt down, a true lion in spirit now brimming with authentic connection. "Anything for my little monkey." At that moment, he knew he was not just standing on the precipice of transformation. He had conquered it. The identity he was forging, both as a father and a leader, was anchored in vulnerability, connection, and authenticity. Tomorrow would be another leap. The shadow of self-doubt persisted, but so did his ambitions. And with each brave step forward, he would teach Lily the essence of courage, one playful roar at a time. You need to subscribe now to this channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.